Welcome to Family Business World. I'm your host, Dr. Dale Caldwell. I have someone who's becoming a friend, Alan Scharfstein from the DAK Group, who has just a really interesting business. But Alan, welcome.
Dale, thanks so much.
Well, thanks for coming. And as always, I always like to hear the origin stories. I wrote this book called Intelligent Influence, and we're all products of our influence. So it fascinates me. So where'd you grow up? And I hear you're a fellow Wharton grad, but where'd you grow up and how'd you get into this business?
Well, I grew up in Brooklyn, New York.
Okay.
I grew up in Brooklyn, New York in the days when people were trying to get out of Brooklyn, as opposed to now when people are trying to get into Brooklyn, right?
A different time.
A different time. But I grew up in Brooklyn and went to school in Philadelphia.
Okay.
And then moved back to New York.
Okay, and so now, how did you get into this business?
Well, after I graduated from Wharton, went to work for Pepsi up at their world headquarters in New York, doing both finance and then manufacturing. Eventually moved over to run a family business where I was the top non-family person in this family business.
Were you the COO or what role did you have?
Yeah, I was the COO of a basic manufacturing company, manufactured packaging products.
Okay.
And at that point, I knew I was growing this company. It was growing too fast for me to own it. I've always thought of myself as an entrepreneur, so I decided to go out and try to buy a business.
Right.
And I was really frustrated by this attempt to buy a business, because what I found was that there were business brokers doing the very small businesses. There were my friends who were doing investment banking, who were handling the billion-dollar deals. But when you looked at those businesses in the middle, those great American middle market businesses, there really weren't a lot of great people handling those businesses.
Interesting.
And so from that came up with the concept of maybe there's a market there to help those mid-sized businesses act as the mediator in those intermediary in those mid-sized business deals.
And you've done an incredible job. I mean, your reputation. I mean, I remember I had you on our Family Business Friday show at Fairleigh Dickinson University, and so many people knew you and had heard about your great work. But before we get there, one of the things, so I've had about 50 of the Family Business World shows, and a number of my clients, we talk about the family and some of the challenges family has, but there's always an employee, a non-family member that really is the glue of the business, that really has been there for 20, 30, 40 years, that if they left, that would be a problem. And so often they're overlooked. And so it's good to have someone who was one of the key people in that. And so as I understand, did they eventually kind of treat you like family?
They treated me like family. As a matter of fact, not only after I left their company did I actually sell it for them.
Okay.
But then one of the owners of the business, who stayed on to run the company after a public company bought the company, actually came to work for me.
Oh, really? Interesting.
And he worked for me until he retired finally at the age of 94.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So the family really came together, both first when they invited me to join their family, and eventually they came into mine.
Well, see, one of the things, and this is my pitch, and I talk about family businesses. The family businesses are the foundation of America. They actually, given a choice of working in government, nonprofits, big companies, working for a family business is the best place to work. And there's so many stories. Yeah, every now and then there's a family that's bad and so on, but everything. And so part of the reason I want to do this show is that so many people do not understand that family businesses are so important, and that we as Americans should be supporting family businesses every time we can, because they give back to the community at much higher rates than anybody else. So I just wanted to say that, and it's just good to talk to someone who's seen it from all different sides. So you started this business, and you're helping. Tell me about some of the services you're providing to mid-market family businesses.
Well, most mid-market family businesses really don't have their own strategic planning departments. They don't have their corporate development offices. But many of them have the exact same issues, problems, concerns, opportunities that much larger companies do. And we really help them figure out how to navigate their way through those issues. So, for example, we will often help businesses grow through acquisition, finding the right acquisition targets for them, helping them negotiate the deal, helping them finance those deals. But also, every business reaches the point where an owner may decide it's time to exit.
Right.
And the question is, for them is, how do they exit? How do they get the right value? What's their company worth? Who do they go to? And again, we help businesses do that. And Dale, to the question that you just asked about, or you raised about family businesses, it's fascinating not only how much value there is in these family businesses. But it's also fascinating as owners go to exit their business, how much concern they have for not only themselves, but for their employees and those who help them get to where they really needed to be.
Well, and so often I really get upset when I hear some politicians beating up family and small businesses. They know that, because they realize that the family businesses, the employees are their assets. And so, you know, they're not going to churn employees because that kills their business. They treat employees in special ways, and that's so important. But one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is that I see so many businesses don't think about valuation. That so many folks don't think about valuation. They're thinking about eventually selling, and then they realize that the only value in the business is them. And so, you know, how do you, before they even are thinking of selling, do you advise businesses to really, on a regular basis, get valued, or what are your thoughts there?
Well, I think one of the biggest mistakes that business owners make is that they don't really think about exit until they're ready to exit. Someone knocks on their door. And there are a number of things that we typically think that a business owner should do. For example, you should always treat your business like you're going to exit it tomorrow. And prepare for that, and do that well in advance of any exit. And there are things that business owners can do to fine-tune their businesses, because often business owners think of their businesses not as the buyer would think of them, but as they think of their businesses. And as a result, business owners usually leave a lot of money on the table. So I think there are ways, and there are things that people can do well in advance of selling their business to make it more valuable. And also when they come to sell it, it's also the question of how they should think about it so that they really do get maximum value.
Well, a good friend of mine, Andrew Fraser, who does a lot of consulting with businesses, he uses the term working in your business versus working on your business. A lot of people are working in the business, but they're really not kind of looking at their business. So what are some of well, we'll start out with the negative stories. What are some of the bad things that you've seen? You've been doing this for how many years?
36 years.
36 years. So you've seen the wide gamut of things. So what are some of the things that you've, you know, you don't have to mention names, but what have been some of the hurdles that you've seen people, or mistakes that people have made?
Well, one you led off with was that they allowed the business to become themselves. They don't have the right infrastructure. They haven't trusted and brought along employees so that employees can give longevity to the business after the business owner leaves. So that's one issue. Other issue today is a issue that we see all the time of customer concentration. When a business is so dependent on a given customer, or sometimes a given supplier, sometimes that will really diminish the value of the business. Because again, think of the business the way a buyer is going to look at this business. They're going to look at two things. They're going to look at, what's my opportunity? How can I grow this business? Where can it go? And then they're going to think about, and what can happen that can sink me? I spend a lot of money. And what's the big thing that they're concerned about? Well, they're concerned about a few things. They're concerned about employees. Will employees leave? They're concerned about customers. Do I have the risk of losing one customer that constitutes 60% of my business?
Interesting. And so as we enter this pandemic, what are you seeing that's different now as people look to sell and other things? Are you, some would say that you're going to start to see more businesses, you know, on the auction block, or, you know, trying to sell because they're just tired of it, they're doing it. Some are saying you're seeing less because they've had such financial troubles. What are you saying? Is it about the same? Is it more or less? What's going to? It's
amazing to me how active the merger and acquisition market is today.
Oh, interesting.
It's strong, it's vibrant, it's surprising is my only way of describing it. And I think there are a couple of things driving that. One is the buyers are still there, meaning that the private equity firms that have trillions of dollars of capital are still buying. Strategic buyers have found it very often more difficult to grow their businesses organically. So they're out there doing it. And from a business owner standpoint, we're seeing some of the tiredness that you're talking about impacting the market. There are business owners who have great businesses who haven't suffered that much during this pandemic. But it's just been a grueling year. It really has been grueling for business owners. And as a result of that, many of them are saying, you know what, it may make sense for us to exit at this point in time. It may not be the perfect time. It may be a little bit early based upon our life plan, but let's do it now.
But one of the things, I was talking to an investment banker friend of mine, and prior to the pandemic, like October of 2019, they were saying this is among the best time to sell a business, because the cost of capital was low, there was a lot of money available, and then you had the pandemic. And you're saying that is this comparable to the end of 2019 as far as people looking to sell? And
it's very comparable. Except in certain vertical markets, right? If you're in the hospitality market, or
this is tough.
it's still a tough market.
Right.
But for basic manufacturing, distribution, it's been a very, very strong market, and most of those businesses have not suffered dramatically during this pandemic.
Interesting. One of the things, so we do a lot at Fairleigh Dickinson University with innovators, technology companies, young people, and so I'm working with people of all ages, and the mentality, all the stories about Google paying $1 billion for this tech innovation that wasn't making any money. And so, I fear a little bit. Now, I have a 16-year-old daughter, but I fear a little bit that some of the young people are they're not looking to grow a business. They're looking to kind of get in, create, get out. Are you seeing some of that yet, or what's your thought about that culture?
Well, there is a lot of that, and some of it is, raises some fears, but some of it is real business intelligence.
Right.
If you really think about it, if we think about the older generation, they viewed the business as their lives. They were emotionally attached to it. It was their identity. It was who they were. And the last thing that they ever thought about was the end of their business career when they sold that business.
Right.
Today, business owners are, if you talk to my kids and they're your kids' generation, what do they talk about? How are we going to exit this business? What's our exit strategy?
Exactly.
Right? And and by the way, that's not so dumb, really, because if we really think about it, when we deal with private equity firms and they're buying a business, one of the first questions that they ask themselves are, what's our exit strategy from this business? And they buy it with a limited time horizon. Let's run it for a period of time and let's go on and do our next thing. So what we're seeing is a lot more serial entrepreneurs. We're seeing more people buying a business, building it, exiting it, and doing it again. What you don't see, you don't see people retiring. No entrepreneur can really retire. They think they can last for maybe 2 or 3 months on the golf course, and then they're back.
I don't know, and in fact, I don't even hang out with people that are going to retire, because they're going to, they're living their dream. So we're going to take a break now for the commercial, and we're going to come back with Alan Scharfstein of the DAK Group, and we're going to continue this conversation. We'll see you in a bit.
I am your personal networking concierge, and I host a show on RVN TV called Connect to Success, where I interview power networkers in the greater Philadelphia and South Jersey area. So join me every week, 12:30 on Thursdays during your lunch break, and now on Fridays at 9 and 9:30 p.m. We'll see you next week.
This plus this equals this plus this and this. Don't drink and drive.
What makes a temple owl? Meet Stella. She's wise, fierce, and she's not alone. Temple University, where owls call home. We are the cherry and white. The city is our classroom, and we lead the rush hour, making our mark on every field around the world. A world without Temple, well, that's like the sky without the North Star. Temple.
We're going to continue our conversation about the next generations, and you know, around the world, 84% of the businesses are family businesses. In the United States, it's about 50% or so because there are many more big corporations. And you know how tough it is to go from first generation to second to third to fourth. It seems like it's getting tougher. That a lot of family businesses and the next generation doesn't want to continue that tradition. Partly because of what we talked about before the break, that people want to are looking to sell, which is smart in some ways. So talk to me a little bit about, about what you're seeing with, with what's going on in the market.
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, there are fewer multi-generational family businesses that are there today. But the other thing I think we're seeing, which is really interesting, is that business owners are selling at younger and younger ages. It used to be that our typical client was someone who was in his mid to late 60s selling a business because no kids were going into it. It was the last step in their business career, time to sell. Last year, our typical seller was in their early 50s.
Wow.
Okay, that's a big change.
That's a big change.
The reason that they're selling, and we do a lot of work to understand what drives these business owners. The reason that they're selling younger in many cases is that they perceive greater risk in running their business today than they used to.
Interesting.
You know, it used to be you ran a great business, you provided good customer service, you provided your product at a good price, that you would expect your customers would be there today, tomorrow, and into the future.
Right.
But today, with all of the mergers and acquisitions going on, all of these large corporations, we're finding we find that businesses have more customer concentration, which provides a great element of risk. They have all sorts of additional new technologies coming in, which are also creating new challenges for their businesses. And so many business owners are saying, maybe it makes sense for us to take the money off the table earlier than we could before. That's number one. And number two is those business owners have more options than they ever did before. Because it used to be you owned your business or you sold it. Today you have private equity, which will allow you to maybe sell part of the business and then have a second bite at the apple, take some money off the table, but still be in the game. So there are lots of options there that business owners never had before. And all that is driving business owners to, again, at younger and younger ages, making decisions to exit or partially exit earlier.
Well, you made a very, very good point that actually running a small business, a family business, an independent business is harder now than it ever has been before. And frankly, I think that's shameful. And this isn't about partisan. It's not about conservative or liberal. It's the fact that as Americans, we need to support entrepreneurs. And I think because of lobbying and other things, big companies are controlling things. And so there aren't as many incentives and there's not as much of a level playing field. So it really has been hard. And at the end of the day, I was watching a TV show, and they were talking about the new technologies in Boston coming out, the new robots, what they're doing. I mean, it's incredible. And so at some point, the only way we as a country can survive is really through jobs. And guess who's going to create the jobs? It's going to be the small businesses. And the pandemic has really shown that. So it's really much harder, but we've got to make that change. So if you could really talk about some of the examples so I'm a small business person out there. I'm in my 50s. I'm thinking about, well, I'm doing well, but it's tougher out there. What steps should I take to begin to think about selling my business? What are some of the smart things I should do to move forward?
Well, I think there are a couple of things. One is you should look at your business the way the buyer is going to look at it, not the way you look at it. And understand what they're going to see as the risks and the opportunities in that business and be able to really capture those and work on those. That's number one. Number two, the biggest mistake that business owners make is that when they think about value of their business, they look in the rearview mirror. What are they told by their advisors very often is look at your earnings, look at your EBITDA, apply a multiple to that. Okay, seems to make sense. But that's not what the buyers are looking at. The buyers are looking towards the future. The buyers are looking at where can this business go. So you need to be in a position to control that narrative as to what that future is and to be able to take the steps that are going to provide the building blocks for the growth of that business. If you can do that, you can get real value for your business. And also when it goes to valuing your business, same thing. Don't allow someone to to put you in the box of saying, I'm going to give you a multiple of last year's earnings.
Right, right.
You've got to be looking towards the future and understand what that is. And not only that, even maybe more important, understand what it's worth to the buyer, because very often a business is worth a lot more to the buyer than it is to you as the current owner.
Right. So let's take it down a notch. And I'm a business. I'm trying to sell. You help me put together to a document, or is it a PowerPoint presentation, or what do I do to potential sellers? What do we work together? What do we put together to try to convince somebody to buy our business?
Yeah, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to spend a little bit of time together. Hopefully you call us far enough in advance that we have some time to work on this and to make sure that we can work on a couple of rough spots so that the business is well positioned.
Okay.
At that point, yes, we put together a document that talks about the business, that really tells the story of the business.
A written document, like a business plan?
Yeah, it's a sort of more of a PowerPoint, but yes.
Okay, yeah.
But something that talks about the business, because every business has a story.
Right, right.
And again, it's not your financials.
Right.
It's the story of the business, where it is today, where its opportunities are, where it can grow, where it fits into the larger infrastructure of the industry,
right,
and how we're going to leverage that and take advantage of that. So yes, we help you put together that document. We also help you identify who the right buyers are for this business.
Right.
Most business owners, many business owners, make the mistake of thinking that the strategic buyer for the business is a competitor.
Interesting.
And usually it isn't.
Right.
Usually it's someone where what you're going to add to their existing mix of business, either you're adding additional geography, you're adding additional products, you're adding additional skill set, you're adding additional management. All of those things can be far more valuable to buyers who are not necessarily existing competitors, but maybe tangential to your business.
And so the DAK Group, one of your competitive advantages is that obviously a lot of buyers know you. So they come to you and they say, hey, I'm looking for something. Have you heard about any deal? I'm looking for this industry. Is that the way it works?
Well, it's some of that, but it really is the fact that we do great research and we think very strategically about where a business is going to fit.
Right.
And if we can do that, we can really find the right home for that business. So for example, a couple of years ago, we were representing a company which manufactured a particular product used in the paving of roadways, of striping roadways. And one would think that the buyer for that would be someone who manufactured paint or someone who did something else of the sort related to this product. Right. The ultimate buyer that we found for this business was a non-US company. And by the way, about a third of the deals we're doing now are with non-American companies coming into this market and buying. But it was a company that was a manufacturer of concrete, which is used in the paving of roadways. What they saw in our client was not their existing product line. What they really saw is the relationships that client had with so many of the U.S. Departments of Transportation.
Right.
They who were trying to enter this market found that to be invaluable to them. So while we might take a look at the business and say it's worth X dollars. To them, it was worth 2.5x.
Right.
Because it gave them an advantage. It gave them immediate entree to a market that they couldn't have gotten into otherwise. That's really what you have to look at, and that's probably what a company like ours brings to the table: the ability to look more broadly at a business and see where it might fit outside of the vision of the business owner.
And I suspect that a lot of the real value of businesses are those relationships. Over the years, they've developed relationships. People know them. They have a reputation in the marketplace. Do you find that that's a big? If you were to categorize the type of value, the things that create value for these businesses? Obviously, the connections. What else?
Connections are very valuable. Sometimes it's supplier relationships. Sometimes it's the customer relationships, which can be grown over time by a new buyer. Very often it's their technology. And in today's marketplace, very often it's their people.
Right.
People are the most valuable asset, and you said this before, the most valuable asset that most businesses have.
Yep.
And if you can keep and retain those people and keep them motivated, that business is invaluable.
Do you stay in touch with them, after they purchase to see what's going on? Do you do that, or not as much?
Oh, once we represent someone they often become our best friends. I mean, we are still in contact with them. I have a client of mine whose business we sold 25 years ago, who flies into New York once every year on the anniversary of his business sale to go out to dinner with us, with my wife and me, with his wife, because we do that. We've gone skiing with clients, we've gone skydiving with clients, we go biking with clients. This is a life-changing event for most people, and we're really honored that they take us into their family to allow us to do that. So yeah, we stay very close with most of the companies that we've sold.
Well, it's funny, I've gotten to know you, and you're a real positive guy, and you're always smiling. So now I kind of know why. Because you normally would think, okay, well, he's selling these businesses, so they're depressed, and they're losing the businesses. He's like a funeral. No, the opposite. You're like you're delivering new babies.
We allow people to live out the rest of their lives the way they want to live them out, right? And so many people, it liberates them from this business, but it also gives them the economic freedom. Most business owners have something like 60% of their net worth tied up in their business, right?
If not more.
And some of them are making a fortune, but they're reinvesting every penny in that business, right? They're not taking money home. They're not buying new cars. They're not buying planes. They are reinvesting in their business, and the sale of their business takes that risk off the table. And for many of them, it's just not the economic risk. It's the burden of being alone and running a business and having all the responsibilities sitting on your shoulders.
Right. But so many folks, and I have a few clients that we work with who, some of them are in their 90s, who their business is their life. And it's not about, and so giving away the business or selling the businesses there is like losing their raison d'etre, their reason for being. And so how have you worked, and I'm sure you've seen that, how do you work with people who say that, Alan, I've worked in this business since I was 12. I'm giving it away. Is it like my, I have terminal cancer? How do you work with people like that?
Well, there are some people for whom selling the business is the best thing you can do for them. And there are others, it's the worst thing. The one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to take away someone's life from them. So if you can enhance it and find a way of doing that, that's terrific. There are some people who, if they sold their business, it would be the next step to they're dying.
One foot in the grave.
One foot in the grave. That would be it for them. And if you have people like that and you see it, best advice for them is don't sell the business. And it's not for everybody, but for those for whom it is the right thing to do, you got to identify that, and you have to make sure that people who are making this decision do it at the right time. Meaning that, there are times at which there are many business owners out there who said, oh, I really wish I had done this when, right? So you don't want to be the person who regrets the fact that you missed the window of opportunity your business had. On the other hand, one of the great quotes in the M&A field, someone once asked Commodore Vanderbilt how he made all his money, and he said, I did it by selling every one of my businesses too early.
Interesting. Well, Alan, we're at the end of time now. It's been wonderful, great talking to you as always, and getting to know you a little better. I want to thank the audience for watching another episode of Family Business World. We will see you next time. Take care.